Hello, my name is Ellie Gettinger, and I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee. I am delighted to be with you today to talk about scrapyards some more. And we've been kind of talking through scrapyards. This is our third session exploring it. Last week, we talked about the Miller family and Miller Compressing, which became the dominant power in scrap in Milwaukee for pretty much 5 decades. And today we're going to talk about the company that bought Miller Compressing, Alter. Alter happens to be our lead sponsor for this exhibit, so we are very delighted to be able to share their story. But their story starts, like so many other scrap stories, with immigrants coming to this country. So this is what the Alter trading piece looks like in the exhibit itself. This actually is part of the national exhibit. It's traveling with the exhibit. And one of the things that is a little bit different about the Alter story is the fact that they diversify a lot. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But it all starts with 2 brothers, as so many of these stories do, David and Morris, who come to the United States from Russia, and they arrive and they start setting themselves up in Iowa. I'm not 100% clear why they end up in Iowa. And in fact, they end up in Davenport, Iowa, where they originally opened Davenport Iron and Metal and start working in scrap there. Several years later, Morris's son, Frank, comes to this country with his mother and siblings. And you can see this is the manifest from May 10th, 1907 on the SS Stendam. They came from Rotterdam and they're arriving. And it says here that that the husband and father has paid for their ticket and they're coming to meet this person. But that was a pretty common immigrant experience where one part of the family would come and then earn enough to send back for the rest. And at this point, there are 5 Alters coming to join Morris in Iowa. As the company develops, Frank and his father work together. Frank joins the business in the 19-teens. And by the 1920s, he and Morris have bought out David, and they are running this business. At some point, they changed the name of the business to Alter Trading as opposed to Davenport Metal. And they start doing all sorts of other things as well. Frank has many daughters, and the next generation of the family of the business actually is taken over by his sons-in-law. And at one point, 2 daughters get involved in different 2 sons-in-laws are involved in different aspects of the business. So one whole part of the business spins off and becomes a separate company. But the part of the family that we're going to focus on is the Goldstein family from here on out. You can see this is Frank Alter on the ship that is named for him, the Frank R. Alter. And the gentleman seated in the front of this picture is Bernard Goldstein, who is the longtime CEO after Frank Alter left the business. Now, there are 2 things that Alter does in the middle part of the century. One is they go into shipping, which means that from a scrap standpoint, that they can manage their own shipping down the Mississippi, but they also do lots of transport of things not related to scrap. So shipping and transport and logistics also becomes a piece of their business. Bernard Goldstein in the 1980s diversifies a little bit more, keeping with that idea of transport and shipping and river lines. He goes into the business of riverboat casinos. So Alter has a whole huge conglomerate of scrap businesses. They have barges and shipping, and then they also have riverboat casinos and just river casinos in places like Natchez, Mississippi, and in Iowa and in Illinois. And so this is a whole different element. You can see Bernard Goldstein here pictured with the one, the only Vanna White on one of their casinos. So this is a process in which today in Alter Trading, the 5th generation of the family is involved with the business because they've maintained this connection from children, and everybody pretty much gets involved in the business in different ways. And it is such a big company with so many different types of products at this point that there's so many different ways in which someone can get involved in this business. I wanted to look at that generational shift through some other Milwaukee companies and Wisconsin companies as well. And I wanted to explore Afram Brothers to start. Afram Brothers, and seated here in the middle, right, and actually I'll circle him, you guys can hopefully see my mouse. The guy who is third from the right is Zeke Afram. And Zeke Afram with his brother Izzy started Afram Brothers. They were from Sheboygan. Their other brother, who is not a named partner within the business, had been in the merchant marine, so they really thought about shipping as part of their business as well. But Afram comes to Milwaukee and sets up a fairly large entity. Zeke Afram, as we talked about last week, is married to Mary Miller Afram, or Etta Miller Afram, who, so she's a sister of Morris Miller, the founder of Miller Compressing, and has all of these other ties. So it's going to really, you got that tangled web as we talked about last time. But Zeke Afram has two daughters, and both of his sons-in-law join the business as well. And so seated next to him on the right is a guy named Jack Beck, who worked in Afram Brothers and worked and actually had a separate scrapyard too, Western, for many, many years. But it's that sense of, you're not just, marrying into a family and, you might see your father-in-law at Thanksgiving or holiday meals, but you are actually working with this person day in, day out. So I think it's such an interesting thing in the scrap business that you have a number of these relationships where sons-in-laws become the people who are carrying on the business name. You similarly see that in this family, Sadolf Rudoy, in which Ed Rudoy buys Sadolf's scrapyard, and they build the scrapyard up, and Rudoy's son-in-law, Shel Lasky, takes over, and these are Shel Lasky's three sons who are now in charge of Sadolf Rudoy. And really, it's the largest scrap dealer in the state aside from Alter. So many of these places, and if we go back to Afram Brothers was a very large entity until it was bought out by Miller. Miller, as we said, was bought out by Alter. So each one, everything's kind of tangled and connected, and so many of our other entities are either owned at this point by Sadolf Rudoy or by Alter, from the kind of Wisconsin scrap. Just that there's been a ton of consolidation in the past 3 decades. The last group I wanted to talk about in terms of that generational contact is Waukesha Iron and Metal. Waukesha Iron and Metal obviously is in Waukesha, and it was started as a auto salvage yard by Frank and Mary Ehrlich. Frank and Mary were both Holocaust survivors. They had escaped from the Nazis by fleeing to Siberia. You can learn more about their story at our December 9th program, Picking Up the Pieces, in which their son Joseph is going to explain this story. But they started this yard really, and the family in Poland had been involved in ironwork. And so this was kind of a natural progression. And they bought this yard in Waukesha where they did auto salvage. Joseph, as he comes into the business, becomes more involved in industrial plants and doing more industrial scrap, not just auto wrecking. And that becomes a bigger piece of their business. And his son now is the third generation involved in the business. Interestingly, Larry Ehrlich actually is partnered with Jack Beck's son-in-law. So you still have that tangled web of scrap and how many different families are involved with this business, with these businesses. So it's always interesting to me, because while I love my family, I can't imagine that we would all be in business together. I'm always intrigued by that idea of what a family business looks like. I have to thank our supporter, Robin Cohen, for making sure that these are possible. You can learn more about Jewish Museum Milwaukee at jewishmuseummilwaukee.org, or you can visit us. We're here, and you can check out Scrapyard in person. Sunday through Friday, please check our website for hours. We'd love to see you. We are open the day after Thanksgiving. Thanks so much, and have a great day.